and welcome back to Mixed Media. We're now live again for another wonderful Monday of talking about our favorite things. And that's what we do. And what is Mixed Media? It is a place where we talk about, pretty much art in general, whether it's history or reviews of things currently, concepts, tips, reviewing your stuff. We do a whole ton of stuff on this podcast related to movies, gaming, music, and a lot of other random topics here and there. So if you like any of that, you should definitely check out our catalog. It has basically as much variety as you could possibly imagine. So with that, let's introduce ourselves. So my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella.
Hi, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and a media composer in Los Angeles.
And I'm Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and video game developer.
Sweet. And just a few things. Gotta give a shout out to our two awesome supporters on Locals. That would be Rob Sharma and 909 Crime, who support us at mixedmedia.locals.com. You can join them by going to that website or going to mixedmediapodcast.com, which has a link to there too. And there you can find a list of perks. I still have yet to make an updated list of perks, but you'll see some of them up there, and there will be content rolling on there as time goes on. So, thank you to those two. Helps keep the lights on. I think that's it. What about you guys? What's been going on?
I got Cubase recently, which is like a DAW, and it was required for class actually. So I guess it's nice instead of having to buy a textbook. It was the equivalent purchase for a class called I don't remember the exact name, but it's something along the lines of like making music with it was like digital audio or something like that. Digital audio, making music with computers, I think is what it's called. But yeah, I got Cubase, and technically they do have like a education edition you can get that's like cheaper or whatever. As long as you can prove that you're a member of some university, then they'll give you the deal, and that's what the professor suggested. But I just bought it outright because then I have it's like a little more expensive, and then I have a commercial license to use it. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's one of the most popular ones for film scoring.
Cool. For me, let's see. So, I saw Avatar, which is what I'll be talking about today while it's fresh in my mind. Saw Avatar 2, long-awaited film, and so you gotta stick around to hear about that. But I guess I'll talk about the experience of going to see it. It was a surprisingly, packed theater for like how long into release it's been. So that was pretty cool. Seeing it with an actual group of people. It's the type of movie you definitely want to see with a group of people, as many movies are, but unfortunately aren't seen that way. So yeah, that was fun. Other than that, pretty normal week. So nothing else of interest.
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing terribly interesting for me. Just starting the first week of classes and getting into the groove again.
Cool. Sweet. How about news? Any news? Interesting news?
The Dead Space remake released, and it has pretty good reviews. So there's that. And I don't really think... I think there's more stuff going on with I think Sony waited on the whole Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard thing, obviously saying do not let this happen to the European Union. I don't really know how much that's going to have an effect on anything or what they said exactly, but yeah.
Cool. On the movie side of things, the Oscar nominees had come out. I put a link to that in the Discord. Actually, I'll just put it in the chat as well. If you're interested, there's the link. And I posted some brief thoughts on Discord as well, so I won't bore you with my initial impressions. So you got to join our Discord. Link in the description if you want to see those. But very interesting cadre. I feel like I just don't it's okay. It's interesting. I feel like I'm less and less interested every year in what's going on over there, but um, yeah, I'm definitely going to be taking a look at some of these films. Some of these films I've been wanting to see for a long time, so this gives me an excuse to binge them anyway. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I noticed obviously, well, the best score nominees are out as well as part of that whole thing. I know none of the music. I haven't seen any of these films, so I don't know. Can't comment on that at the moment.
I was actually surprised the Batman didn't make it onto the best score list. But yeah.
That actually reminds me. I was listening to oh man, I can't remember what it's called. Wow. It's like a the song Funeral March, the Funeral March song. You guys know what I'm talking about, right?
No. Wait, from the Batman specifically, or
no. This is not. This is an old song.
From
it's like it's from a symphony. I'm pretty sure. I think
just like Siegfried's Funeral March from the opera Götterdämmerung by Wagner. It's probably the most popular funeral march, orchestral funeral march.
Oh, it's Chopin's Funeral March.
Okay. There's that as well.
Yeah. I was listening to it, right? I was just like trying, like I was studying something about music, but I was listening to it, and I was like, this reminds me of like the theme for the Batman, right? I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then lo and behold, I scroll down the comments, and someone's like, oh yeah, it's actually used for the inspiration as part of like the theme of the Batman. I'm like, okay, that makes sense to me. So, yeah.
Cool.
Just a fun fact.
Yeah, a lot of names I didn't recognize. I don't know if you recognized them on the music list, Ben, but I didn't recognize. Pretty much anyone.
Well, for best original score, it's Babylon by Justin Hurwitz. So
yeah, I've heard of him. Of course.
Yeah. Everything Everywhere All at Once by Sun Lux. I don't know what that is at all. Were you impressed by the music for Everything Everywhere All at Once, Irving?
I don't remember it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Which probably means it probably wasn't that. I mean, there's a lot of pop music in it. And I remember that, but I don't remember any of like the underscore.
Something tells me, knowing nothing about the film and knowing nothing about the music in the film, that maybe it's just one of those things where, like, because it got so many nominations in every other category, and it's kind of like the hot movie, someone's like, well, we should probably, nominate it for best score as well.
Yeah.
It might be that.
Sun Lux is not one composer; it's a band.
Oh.
I kind of assumed as much, but that name sounded kind of more like a band name.
Okay. Didn't know that. But I can't even think of what the band would have put together on it.
It's an experimental band, but that's what Wikipedia says, which is very vague, so I don't I don't know what kind of experimental it is.
I definitely need to watch this film. Like, I don't know, what is it available on?
How did I watch it? I watched it via. How did I watch it? Oh, I remember, because that's how it was on Showtime, on like whatever Showtime streaming service, and I did a 7-day free trial, and then I ended up watching a bunch of other stuff and then canceling it.
Okay. Yeah, Carter Burwell's pretty famous for Banshees of Inisherin, which I haven't seen. I don't know anything about, but I know my brother really liked watching it. John Williams, everybody knows who he is. And Volker Bertelmann for All Quiet on the Western Front. I guess I'm assuming he's a German composer. Never heard of him, so.
Yeah. I will say the biggest snub for me out of it all was Top Gun Maverick not getting cinematography nomination. That kind of just blows my mind. I'm like, out of all the things that if it got nominated for nothing else, I would just be like, yeah, that makes sense. But it gets nominated for like other things, which is the weird part. It gets nominated for editing. I'm like, okay, but cinematography, right? Like they strapped cameras to these things, and like the actors themselves were in charge of some of these shots, like in terms of framing them. Like, I don't know. I thought that was a shoo-in, but at least for a nomination. But that's bizarre to me. I don't know why that happened. But yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, so yeah, I guess we'll head over to our first segment. If you're new to the show, we do these in 3.5. I mean, this is kind of our half segment, but we do it in like 3 different segments. We talk about each of our things. Each week we do a topic, a arguing with Reddit segment, which we'll see later, and we do sort of a review or something else. Yes, but for now, we're going to go over to Ben, who's going to be talking about the Piccolo. So get ready for that. All right. And here we go.
Mixed Media Music.
All right, welcome to Mixed Media Music, the portion of the Mixed Media Podcast where I and my co-hosts discuss things related to music with a particular focus on film, media music in general, and classical music. So before we get started, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player, piccolo player as well, and a media composer living in Los Angeles. My co-hosts introduce themselves.
And I'm Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
And I'm Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and game developer.
Okay, so today we're going to be kind of following up on my last, or maybe not my, I guess the last time I did a quote-unquote topic on our show, which is back right before Christmas, I think. Maybe the week before Christmas, leading up to Christmas. We had part 1, thoughts on writing for an auxiliary instrument for younger composers. And I promised at the end of that we would have next time a kind of more in-depth look on applying some of those principles. My auxiliary instrument, the piccolo. All right, so there's a piccolo in the instrument. Well, it looks more like a flute, honestly, in the instrument art. If you're watching this instead of listening to it, you can see my piccolo here. And yeah, I actually am become much more of a piccolo first player than a flute player. Obviously, I play a ton of flute, but somehow I'm one of those rare people, maybe not rare, but weird people who probably am more natural at playing piccolo than flute for whatever reason. But the most important thing, if you're a flute player / piccolo player, the most important thing about the piccolo is that you have to embrace it and not be afraid of it. A lot of flute players are terrified of it, and if you're terrified of it when you pick it up, you'll sound like you're terrified. It is. I mean, it can be terrifying, but you kind of have to embrace the terror and not just be like, oh, I'm not going to touch it. Anyway. The culture of being a flute player aside, I play this a lot. I play it in lots of different contexts, and it's one of the things that really informs, though my experience overall informs what I'm going to say, but one of the experiences that informs what I'm going to say here especially is playing in one of my classes where I play primarily just this for a bunch of student film, media composers, and they arrange and write stuff every week, and then they put it on my scene, and I sight read it for them as part of an ensemble, and I get to work with them, and tell them some things like, you can't do that on piccolo, or you wrote this an octave lower than the piccolo can play, kind of things like that. Okay, so again, we're going to apply some of the principles I talked about in my last episode. So I'm not sure if the title was. I don't think it's officially been put up, but you could probably go back to around like the week before Christmas. It probably is still up on the website. You can kind of get it, hear part 1 of what I said. Okay. So a professor that I had the other day actually said this, and I thought this was kind of a cool quote to start off with, and I'm going to paraphrase it just slightly, but he said, knowing an instrument's range is like knowing the letters of the alphabet. And that, just knowing the letters of the alphabet is not going to be enough for you to start writing words, much less write a poem. Okay, and your goal is to write poetry, right? Okay, so yes, you want to know, that's step one. You need to know the range of your auxiliary instrument. You need to know the range. If you're going to write for piccolo, you need to know what its range is. Its range is D5 to C sharp 8, written D4 to C sharp 7. You don't really want to touch that C sharp 7, written C sharp 7, though, unless you are absolutely certain that your player can play it, and it's not an easy note to play. Okay, that's your range. Well, that doesn't tell you very much about it, other than you better write in that range, because I see student composers who don't write in that range, or don't understand one of the fundamental things about piccolo is one of those few instruments where the written range that you write on the page, you don't transpose it, like in terms of shifting like C to E flat or something, but it is an octave transposition. So if you want a sounding C5, you can't get that on piccolo ever. If you want a sounding C6, you write C5. All right, C5 being in middle of the staff C, middle of treble clef staff, treble clef middle staff C. It will sound like a C an octave higher than that, C6. All right, so fundamental things about writing for piccolo. That's not quite enough if you want this thing, if you want to create poetry with this thing. Okay. So we talked in the last episode about making sure you give players enough time to switch between instruments, which I had to do. So I also have my flute right here. You can see the huge size difference. I don't know if it's going to show up that well. That's our flute. Yep. That's piccolo. Yeah,
it's like
piccolo,
double the length.
Oh, more than that. Piccolo is about its length gets to the first key on the flute. Probably like 3 times as long. Okay. So there are some mechanics involved in actually picking one up and putting the other down. So you need to make sure you give the player enough time to switch if you're asking them to switch. Some other fundamental differences, right? As I pointed out, one of the biggest mistakes of writing for an auxiliary instrument is acting like this. The piccolo is just, or any auxiliary instrument, it's just a larger or smaller primary instrument. This is not just a smaller flute, although it is smaller and has some of the same mechanics, right, and the same fingering system. There are a couple of reasons why that is. Let's see if we can get this to show up. If you look just at the hole in which we blow, they're obviously very different sizes. Okay, so that requires the player to adjust their mouth very slightly. Like you probably can't tell, but I can tell on my lips. Okay, so that in itself will cause some challenges that we work to overcome, but you want to keep that in mind, that we have to change what we do with our lips slightly. We move between one instrument and the other. This thing is a cylindrical bore instrument. So it is the same diameter, the entire length of the flute, the same diameter of the entire length of the instrument. The piccolo has a cylindrical bore head joint from the top right here to right here where my finger is. And the rest of the instrument is a conical bore. Right? It's about 4 millimeters, I think, larger on this end than the end of the instrument. Okay. So that creates very different tuning and acoustic properties. It maximizes certain properties and different parts of the instrument's range compared to the flute. Okay, so you want to understand that, again, they're literally not quite the same thing. It's not just like a smaller flute. Now, like beginner piccolos will often be metal instead of made out of wood. The construction, of course, that also makes a difference. This, a nice concert piccolo, and metal piccolos are also normally all cylindrical bored, but a good wooden piccolo is conical board. All right, so you just want to keep that in mind. You don't need to worry about what the different kinds of bores mean necessarily. Okay, So because again we touched on this in the last episode as well, but because of the changes, like especially in the mouth, right? You want to keep changes to a minimum between the two instruments, for a given player. If you're writing changes at all between the instruments. Okay, so some the characteristics of the piccolo that make it different than the flute. Because of its construction, right? Because of this bore type, and also just because of the size of the instrument, it's low range. And I'll for the purposes of this, we'll just say generally written D4 to, we'll say D5. Okay, that lowest octave, approximately, is pretty quiet. And it actually, you can get a really beautiful sound on low piccolo, but it is very hard to hear. And so you need to be careful of that. And this is also a source of most of my frustrations as a piccolo player. All right, is how you use the low and the middle register. Okay, so I'm going to give you some examples in a second. But so on top of that, the middle register of this thing, piccolo, is it's quite prone to cracking, especially when you're doing a lot of articulation. So like tonguing notes, instead of slurring them, even more than the flute. And again, this is really mostly an issue in the middle register. So you want to keep that in mind as well. Just keep that in mind, And in general, because it's so much smaller, articulation is even more immediate and often crisper than on the flute, except in that kind of middle, we'll say like D5 to maybe we'll say A5. Okay. So if you gonna write in that lower and middle range, you want to know why you're doing this. And we talked quite a lot about this in the last episode on writing for auxiliary instruments. So please check that out first. But as an example, like what not to do, some things not to do with the lower part of the piccolo and the middle range, that kind of lower bound of the middle range. You want to make sure that you're not asking the player to play things that are doing too much doubling of the flute, right? You don't want to make me ask, why can't I? All of those notes are very easy to play on the flute. So if you're going to write for the low piccolo, you want to know what kind of sound it has there and why it's doing it. If you want some really good examples of it, in particular, there are many in classical music. Lots of Ravel, beautiful low piccolo. But since a lot of what we talked about is media music, two really cool examples of low piccolo are from the Phantom Menace. Track, I think you probably need to get the full expanded soundtrack to find these tracks. They're not on the official soundtrack, like the standard official soundtrack. But the track Queen Amidala Warns Federation, and then the track Jar Jar Binks Leads the Group to the Gungans. Two fantastic, really pretty low piccolo solos in there. Now, so this is exploiting the kind of velvety, kind of dusky sound and mysterious sound of the low piccolo. And in order to achieve that, right, you got to make sure it's heard. So John Williams and his orchestrators are very careful. In Queen Amidala Warns Federation, from the very beginning of the film, the low piccolo is accompanied by two bassoons playing very quietly. Some high string, very quiet, like very high harmonics in the violin, and a couple of wind sounds from synthesizers. Other than that, it's low piccolo. There's pretty much nothing in the way of this thing. So, right, a conscious choice to use the low register as a solo instrument and The way is completely cleared for you to hear this. And the second one, Jar Jar leads the group to the Gungans. I think the accompaniment is just synthesizers, and the volume is very easy to control on them. We're just doing like pads, so pretty much nothing but this low piccolo. Okay, so it can be a very effective solo instrument if you get out of its way. If you do not get out of its way, then you want to ask yourself, do I need this to be on piccolo? Do I understand what the sound is going to be? It's going to be very quiet. It is not going to be the same sound as if it was played on a flute, right? Because the low register of the piccolo, even though it is the same pitch as the mid register of the flute, does not have quite the same qualities. So you want to make sure you spend some time listening to piccolos and flutes and studying writing, figuring out what the sound difference is, even on the same pitch between those things. Okay. Some other things to keep in mind is intonation is very different on this thing because it is a conical board instrument. And it is almost always going to be sitting at the top of the orchestra or whatever ensemble you're playing with. So if something is out of tune, the ear is going to go to the highest pitch first. Partially why it's so terrifying to play is because if something is wrong, even if it's not the piccolo that's out of tune, it sounds like it's the piccolo because it's at the top of the chord normally. You want to keep in mind that intonation is going to probably the number one terror for any player playing this thing. They won't act like they're terrified of it, but in their mind, and it's one of the things they're worried about. But also because the margin for error on this thing is almost nothing, right? It's so small that every tiny little change we make, every half of the millimeter we move makes a huge difference in pitch. Okay, you want to just keep that in mind. Another thing is, so this piccolo really shines, of course, in its upper range, where it is pretty much the highest thing in the orchestra, and it's very brilliant up top. A very sparkling sound. It can be aggressive as well. So in general, you want to be careful of hanging out too much in the extremes, though, because the color will get a little bit boring after a while. Players, we don't want to play up in the stratosphere forever because it damages our hearing. Although we wear earplugs, you need to wear earplugs to play this thing. Just keep that in mind, that in general, you want to avoid hanging out in the stratosphere too much. Although that's kind of where this shines the most, but use sparingly, right? Okay. Now, you also want to keep in mind, right, that chord voicings, especially if you're going to be voicing chords, thinking about in terms of the flute, the flute choir, right? All the flutes that are playing, and all the instruments in the flute family. So what I see sometimes is composers are so set, younger composers are very set on having the chord that they have laid out, especially at the end of pieces, okay, or like a line, but kind of as a chord, whatever. That I have written it. Let's say I'm writing a C major triad in root position, and it's got to be C, E, and G in that order in every instrument. In every within each instrument family. Like the clarinets have to be in that order, flutes have to be in that order, whatever. Okay. Well, so what I will see sometimes is, composers are I don't really want it to be too high though. So the flutes, we're gonna take this C major triad, right, in root position, so C, E, G, and flute 2 is going to be the root. They're going to be C5, written in the middle of the staff, treble clef. Flute 1 will be the E right above it, third above it, and the piccolo will be a G right above it, because that way we maintain our nice root position triad. Okay, well, if you're going to do that, it means the piccolo will be playing its low G, not its middle register G, right? The mid register for the flute G that you're going for, that sound is right. It's written an octave lower So it's in the low part of the piccolo range instead of the mid range of the flute. Okay. So one of those things where I, the piccolo player, ask myself, why are you doing that? Because the chances that the timbre of the piccolo, or not just the timbre, but even the pitch itself in the piccolo, playing that low G on like a big final chord, the chances that that's going to be heard is essentially zero, no matter what ensemble we are playing in. It's just done to maintain the purity of this triad. So we can ask, right, does the piccolo even need to be there at all? Could the piccolo player just be sitting out that last note or that last chord? If not, is there a real problem if the piccolo played it up an octave, or if the piccolo played a different note in that chord, right? Instead of having that G, because that G is probably doubled in the violins or clarinets anyway. Is there a need for this to play? Could it play the C instead? Could it play the G an octave higher? Right? Is that going to ruin your chord? Or do you really need the flutes in closed position, C, E, G, stacked up in thirds? Do you really need the flute choir to be that low? If it's a really massive chord, is it a problem if all the flute, if you need to maintain that triad for some reason? Can you move the entire flute choir up an octave? And you put your piccolo still on top, but now it's in a nice, comfortable mid-range G. Right. So that's like chord voicings is another example of things where you gotta ask yourself, is the piccolo player going to be questioning my writing here? They're going to ask themselves, why am I doing this? That happens. I find that to be pretty common. A lot of low piccolo writing, just so that it is on top of a chord in the flutes, or a low piccolo writing just so that it's in unison with the flutes. It's another big thing. Unison with flutes, and if the flutes are in the mid register, then I'm in the low register as a piccolo player. If you're going to do that, ask yourself, do I really need the piccolo to be playing this when the piccolo player could just pick up the flute and play it? Right? Is there a reason that the piccolo is going to be playing in that octave, and be doubling in unison with the flutes? Right? Do I want the piccolo sound in there somehow, or am I just putting it there so that the piccolo player is playing, and I think it's just nice that the piccolo player, has something to play. I see this even like really, really, well written pieces by very experienced composers. You do not have to write for this thing or any auxiliary instrument, and then you don't have to play everything. We don't have to play a note every time the flutes are playing a note. Ask yourself about unison doublings, whether it's really necessary, or right, because it's especially if it's a lower doubling. This won't add anything really. It's just a lot of flutes. I can think of a very particular piece I played last semester by a very well-respected composer, primarily for wind band, who did this. Where it's like 5 flutes, they're playing the whole time, and then at one moment where the entire ensemble plays, he has the flute come in and piccolo come in, and the piccolo is doubling all the flutes. But why, right? As an octave doubling. I could just play that on flute if you wanted one more player making the sound, right? It's all like low piccolo, so something to keep in mind as well. Yeah, so those are kind of my my general tips on writing for piccolo. Like I said, you don't have to write for piccolo or any auxiliary instrument all the time. A lot of the best uses of piccolo in classical music, or even in media music, a lot of the best uses of piccolo come from piccolo players sitting around for a very long time and then playing 2 measures, but they're effective measures. Like, there's a reason that piccolo sound needs to be there for those 2 measures, and then it's gone. And it adds some little sparkle for those 2 measures. Obviously, the most famous example of that would be Tchaikovsky's Fourth Symphony, where Piccolo player sits in the first 25 minutes of the piece, sit for the entire first movement, entire second movement, first half of the third movement, and then they come in with probably the most famous and challenging run ever written for the instrument, 2 measures long. And then they get 2 measures of rest, and they play the same 2 measures again. Okay. That's, again, hard and terrifying. You sit around for 25 minutes or more, you haven't touched this thing, then you have to come in cold on a really difficult passage. But Tchaikovsky understood that the sparkle of the piccolo needed to be in those 2 measures, and it's not needed before that. So it might be challenging for the player, but it is an effective choice. So that's the most important thing. We're always looking for like effective choices. You can do anything within reason, like it's physically possible on any instrument, but you want to make it effective. You don't just want wall to wall playing for no reason. So yeah, that's my general thoughts on playing writing for the piccolo. And just kind of building off the general principles I laid out in auxiliary instruments part 1, writing for auxiliary instruments part 1. So again, understand what the piccolo sounds like throughout its range, right? Kind of, I call it a dusky sound in this low register. That very quiet, high register, very brilliant. Very hard to play quietly. Conductors are always asking the piccolo to play quieter. Very hard to do. But it can be very, very brilliant, very ear-piercing up there. Has a lot of sparkle to the color up top. Mid-register has kind of a wooden sound compared to the flute. I guess as a final thought, sometimes I'll see this where composers are young composers, they're too nice. They're like, well, I can write, this part that would be high-ish on flute, high, not the extreme most high note on the flute, but a high note on the flute, or high part on the flute. But I'll be nice and give it to the piccolo player in their like mid-register or low register. Again, know what sound you're going to get. It will not be the same as if it were played on the flute. And if it can be easily played on the flute, and there's no good reason for the color of the piccolo, just, you want to think about that. Also, as I said, if it's a lot of tonguing, it'll be much easier to play that on the flute than a mid-register, like really fast tonguing on piccolo. Exception being someone like Ravel, the very opening of his piano concerto with the piccolo solo, because Ravel really wants the wooden sound. It goes along with the like, what do you call it, like whip sound, wooden like whip sound that's going on in his piano chords or in piano runs. He wants the mid register and low register piccolo tonguing sound, articulated sound, even though it's much harder to get those pitches on clean on this than on the flute. He wants a very wooden sound at the opening. So again, if you're going to do it, know why you want it. Don't just do it to be nice and think that a flute player doesn't want to play all those high notes, and so we'll give it to the piccolo player instead. That's my parting thought.
Cool. 99 Crime in the chat says very insightful. And I would agree. That was very detailed. That was good.
Oh, good. Hopefully that helps somebody who is not very familiar with the piccolo.
Sweet.
Let me put my piccolo down here.
Even if you're not, well, I'm gonna wait for him to come back. Okay. Even if you're not arranging for piccolo or anything like that, I think that was an interesting to learn about the piccolo and how it's different from the flute. If you didn't know. And clearly the AI doesn't know because I couldn't get anything piccolo-like to come out of it. But yeah. Cool. Sweet. Shall we move on to gaming?
I guess so.
You can take us out then.
Sure. Well, if you are watching live, thank you for joining us. Please stay on and watch the rest of our show. And if you are watching or listening in post after we've released this, thank you for watching Mixed Media Music. Definitely come check us out on our Discord, and also you can check out our locals page to support us. And give us a like or comment if you like it or don't like it, and or whatever the equivalent of that is on whatever platform you're using. Yeah, again, thanks for listening to Mixed Media Music.
Sweet.
Mixed Media Gaming.
And welcome to Mixed Media Gaming, where we talk about gaming. Today's our argument with Reddit segment, where I'll be talking about some Reddit hot takes that my co-hosts have chosen for me. Some of them I might agree with, some of them I might not agree with. I guess we'll see. I guess we should reintroduce ourselves. My name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a game developer and 3D modeler.
My name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella, based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
Hi, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer in Los Angeles.
All right. And if you couldn't tell, I was not ready for that transition. I was listening, but I was like half zoned out. I was thinking about something else, and I was like, "Oh, gaming!" appeared on the screen. I'm like, "Wait, that is my time." So sorry for the jank intro, but yeah. So it's the Mixed Media Podcast, where we talk about games, movies, and music, and oftentimes the intersection between those. If you're watching this live, then I guess you already got the spiel already. But if you're watching this in post, we do stream live, so you can come watch us anytime. Well, not anytime, I guess during our stream only. But yeah. And it's a good time. So, all right.
All right. So this first one is from me. Before I forget what the heck this is about. So it says Microsoft. This is from r/gaming news, and it says Microsoft says Sony isn't telling the truth to EU regulators about Call of Duty. So a little backstory for those who don't. Wow, that's terrible. Let me see if I can fix that. There we go. Oh boy. A little backstory.
This is, by the way, what I was referencing during the news segment.
Yes. Well, did you give a full breakdown? I don't remember.
No, because I don't know much about it. I just have I essentially said what the headline said. So
okay,
yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, basically, there's a antitrust thing happening in the EU over Microsoft. A lot of it's revolving around the acquisition of Activision Blizzard, which two gigantic companies merging together. And basically Sony is saying that the console market will be on lockdown because they have, the PS4, and now they'll make all these other games also exclusive for Xbox. So
PS4? You mean PS5 or
PS5? Sorry, my bad. And so Sony is basically saying that that Microsoft has done nothing in the way of basically allowing sales on PS5 in order to ameliorate some of the antitrust problems that they're being tried for in the EU. And Microsoft says, no, actually, we are offering Sony the ability to participate in the development of Call of Duty. It's kind of a weird statement. It says,
what does that mean?
I hear Sony is briefing people in Brussels, claiming Microsoft is unwilling to offer them parity for Call of Duty if we acquire Activision. Nothing could be further from the truth. Basically, they offered a 10-year deal to give Sony parity on timing, content, features, quality, playability, and any other aspect of the game being Call of Duty. So yeah, that's just a quick breakdown of the story.
What happens after? So 10 years is a long time, but what happens after 10 years is my question.
That's pretty much the first thing that Sony brings up is 10 years is not actually parity. Is one of the first things they say.
10 years is a long time until you think about, wait, these are companies that are going to exist for a long time and stuff. And you know, like that could mean fine for 10 years, and after that, it's bad. But I don't know. I remember reading like the one of the antitrust documents. I think this one was from Sony. I think it was for the FTC. Or sorry, this is not from Sony. This is from the FTC actually. It's from the FTC themselves, saying there's some issues going on here, and basically one of the things they said. I think I linked it in the Discord at some point. But one of the things they said was that so Microsoft says that they won't make COD and other Activision Blizzard properties an exclusive, but they've also said that before with the Elder Scrolls, and then they proceeded to make it an exclusive after they bought Bethesda. So saying like, I don't really know how trustworthy they are on that one. I don't know. Like, I guess with a parity deal, it would literally be a legally binding type thing. Although I wonder like to what I don't know how do you enforce that? Like, how do you? Because parity, like, I assume means like making it equal, right? It should be like an equal product on both PlayStation and Xbox platforms. But like, what if like they just don't put as much effort into like the PlayStation platform? Is that still parity? I mean, I guess not. I mean, to prove that was intentional.
That's what they're basically trying to say is what they're going to do. By giving them this a say in like the development pipeline is that's what they're claiming at least. Is that all the same?
I don't know. All of this seems to just like revolve around like the goodwill of Microsoft, which I don't know about that one. And 10 years is definitely not like that's like I don't know. That's sus for sure. So I would be kind of worried if I were Sony about this for sure. So yeah.
Yeah, and if for me, we wouldn't be talking about parody. We'd be talking about cleaving the company into like 5 different pieces. But
right,
yeah, cool. All right, the next one. How about we do Ben's next? So Ben, you want to give us a rundown?
Yeah. So let's see if I can remember this. Let me pull it up. Okay. This person asks, it's kind of an interesting question. I'll just read the whole thing. It's short, and there are a lot of interesting responses too. But kind of, I don't know. It's a very interesting question. The person says, "What if we stopped buying games for a year, played only our favorites we already have, and in the meantime, see what happens to this overpriced, bloated gaming market? Would anything change? What should the goals be? Could we expect better from gaming companies? The arbitrary price rate of $60 or more per game drop?" That's the take, or the question, I suppose. The bunch of questions.
I think it'd be a really bad idea. if you stop buying new games, and only played your favorites. So playing your favorites, I don't think really like matters, right? Because I think the main thing is that you're just not buying.
Yeah, it just means play
games.
Play things that you already have that you enjoy playing instead of trying to find new things to enjoy playing.
Well, you'd absolutely murder the indie gaming industry, so there's that.
It's just interesting because some of the comments are like this would benefit the indie and hurt only AAA games.
I'm not entirely sure how that would happen. I'm not really sure. Like, if we took away money from all game developers, right? If you have no money to begin with, I'm not really sure how it's gonna like help you, or have very little money to begin with. Whereas like say like Microsoft, right? Their business is not just games, right? Like, yeah, that'd be like devastating for their game studios, right? But like, let's imagine this happened, right? No more sales of new games. Let's okay. It's not 100% certain that all studios will shut down. Let's just like, for simplicity's sake, let's say that all studios shut down. Then the drought ends, and the Microsoft just makes a studio again, right? Because they have money, they can just do it again. Like it's not like it's not like the thing is they still own the IP, which is the really valuable stuff, right? They can still make the next Forza Horizon game, because they still have the IP, which is like the really valuable part of it, anyways, right? Whereas like for like the indie dev, they have no IP and they have no revenue at all, right? So, obviously not literally right there. Sure, certainly there are indie studios with big IPs and big cash flows, but compared to the large players, it's insignificant, relatively speaking, in a way, So I think that's definitely backfire in a way. And I don't know if that make anything better, because I guess the idea is like every time people the certain studios like, hey, we just won't play your games if we can find issues with them, like as in apparently they're overpriced or bloated. In which case, actually, I guess that would work, because in a perfect world where like people would not play games, would essentially police the games market by doing stuff like that, then yeah, I guess you would just never have those games, right? Although we do have like differing opinions on what is considered overpriced and what is considered bloated, so you're not going to get like a clear like cut of like, oh yeah, certainly all these games that are clearly in the overpriced category are all not being played or whatever. So you would not have everyone agree on that anyways. So I don't really know how much it would do. I have a feeling that whatever it would do, it would not be what like anyone like here seems to think it would do. It'd probably be pretty bad for the industry as a whole. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for like boycotting certain games, or just just don't buy things that are like buggy messes and stuff like that, like things that are developed with poor practices that you don't want to see continue. So I think a better solution would not be to just like stop buying games, but stop buying like certain games. Not buying games as a whole doesn't really make sense to me at all. As for like, so I guess for the questions, I guess I kind of explained some possibilities of what would change. What should the goals be? I mean, I think this is like a strange idea of creating like the method to do the goal before the goal itself. So I don't know. What would the goal be? I don't know. Could we expect better from game companies? Maybe. If the goal would be like something like that, right? And you threaten to do it again, I guess. And would the arbitrary price of $60 per game drop? No, it's not. It's not sustainable. So there you go.
Yeah, I don't know why not just buy indie games. I feel like
you could just buy like I assume like that like would solve like a lot of the issues, right? That's what I'm saying, right? Just buy certain games.
Yeah.
Just buy the games that if you don't like the $60 price thing, buy games that are cheaper than $60. That do you hear that background noise, by the way?
Yeah. What is that?
Yeah.
So that is the heater in this room, which sometimes makes that noise randomly. I don't really know why, but it's done. So. But yeah, I'm sure you can find a game that fits your criteria. I'm interested though, because the first reply says r/patient gamers. The sub may be interested to you. I've never heard of it, but it has 550,000 members. And the little description is a gaming sub free from the news, hype, and drama that surround current releases, catering instead to gamers who wait at least 12 months after release to play a game. Well, its price, waiting for bugs/issues to be patched, DLC to be released, don't meet the system requirements, or just haven't had the time to keep up with the latest releases. This is my kind of subreddit. But yeah, actually, that sounds like a good plan as well, right? You can just
take it slow.
Just do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never quite understood the hype for like, this game's about to release. Like people will have this thing where they'll say like, when this drops, I'm gonna get it. It's like, I don't know, man. Have you been burned so many times at this point? Like, you really want to do it again? I don't know. But yeah, that's all I'd say about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of psychology behind the marketing of these things, and it's not very pleasant. Okay.
Right.
All right. Last one is you, Nathan.
Right. I forget what I sent. Let's see. Okay. It's titled Battlefront 2 is on sale. Oh, it's a long title. Battlefront 2 is on sale on Steam. Am I the only one who refuses to buy a game due to not wanting to install their crappy app? I stopped playing GTA 5 because Rockstar Launcher is so intrusive, just like Origin. Both have background services running at all time, even when closed. Okay, so if you're watching on or listening on audio only, there's a little screenshot, and it shows like a part of the Steam page, and the game has this tag that says, quote, incorporates third-party DRM, EA online activation, and Origin client software installation and background use required. Right, okay, that's it. So, I've thought, like, for a bit about, like, DRM and, like, whether I care. I think I don't, generally speaking, is what I found. I know this might be, like, a hot take. This might be one of the hotter takes. I think, in general, people in the game world don't really like DRM. Either they don't really think about it too much, or if they have, like, an opinion on it, their opinion is generally negative, is what I found. I think I fit in the I don't really care camp. The reason being is I generally don't find it intrusive, and I don't necessarily know if it's that, like, some people have concerns over, like, privacy and stuff like that. In general, I don't know if it's any less, like, privacy breaching than, like, just your average application, you know? So, I won't pretend to know, like, the inner workings of DRM and, you know, how like, what exactly it does, or I know it does, but how exactly it works, I guess I should say. But, like, so in terms of intrusiveness first, right? Usually, like, I just don't know. Like, it's just like I literally don't notice for the most part with DRMs, right? I don't know. I don't think about, like, those DRMs running in the background. It's like this thing using like 0.002% of my CPU time. I just don't care type thing, you know. Then there's the idea of, like, okay, well, you know, it has some of them have, like, launchers with them. So with the Rockstar launcher or Origin, for example, with Origin, it's just like Steam, right? And I guess you could say, like, well, I don't want to buy a Steam game that launches the Origin launcher and then launches the game, right? I wish I could just have the thing launch the game. Which you could just buy it on Origin and it solves the problem. Now, you could say, well, the price isn't as good on Origin, or, like, you know, I prefer opening my games on Steam. The second, which there is no excuse for, because you can tell Steam to open any game regardless of what launcher it natively uses by just giving it the path to the executable, and you can just have it in your Steam library like any other game. Unless I guess you want to have like a direct, easy way of getting to, like, the community page for the game, I guess, which you can just I don't know if it's too big of a deal to, like, go to the community tab and just search the game rather than go to your library and find the game and right click it, hit community or whatever it is, right, or store page or whatever. I don't really think that's a big deal. I guess the one thing could be the fact that it might cost more on Origin compared to Steam. In which case, I guess, aren't you kind of just like you're getting what you pay for in a way, right? If you're paying less, it's like, well, I guess that's the one thing to deal with is, like, an intermediate thing opening. And the intermediate thing opening, I don't even find that intrusive, because what happens is you open the thing, it automatically launches Origin for you. You just do nothing. Essentially, it just increases the load time, is how I think about it, right? It just takes longer for Origin to open and then open the game or whatever. Otherwise, I don't really think there's that big of an issue. In terms of, like, privacy concerns, I think a lot of people might be put off by the fact that, like, oh, it's always running in the background or whatever. But I think something that people don't realize is, like, generally speaking, any program you have on your computer can pretty much has, like, pretty, like, decent access to do, like, a lot of things, many of which you probably would not want them to do. So there isn't really any, as far as I'm aware. Once again, I don't, like, know exactly how DRM works, but in terms of general programs, I don't think DRM necessarily would do anything out of the ordinary that any other program couldn't just do without you even knowing it was doing it. You know what I'm saying? So I don't really think there's, like, a big, privacy concern there necessarily. I am aware of, like, things like Vanguard being it's not, as far as I'm aware, Vanguard doesn't act like DRM. I'm pretty sure it's just anti-cheat only. But once again, I do not know how this works, so don't like, you know. I mean, you can yell at me on Discord if you want to, because I'm not entirely sure. But I've been told that it runs on ring 0 of your computer. What does that mean? I don't really know. So, like, I don't I don't know. It's like a big issue. People say it's an issue. So that is the only thing that I'm aware that's like out of the ordinary with game software and stuff like that. Supposedly Ring Zero gives you like access to like things. I don't know what things, but things I guess that you might not want programs to have access to. So that's my take. I don't really think it's really a big deal, and I just don't care. So yeah.
Cool. Sweet. Any last thoughts?
No.
I don't know. I
think that's it.
Sweet. All right. Well, take us out then.
All right. Thank you for watching this segment of Arguing with Reddit. I'd like to continue the conversation. Maybe explain to me how exactly DRM works and why I should be concerned. Then you can go to mixedmediapodcast.com where you'll find a link to our Discord. That's definitely the best.
Oh, wait, hold up. I messed that up real quick. No one can hear you. Hold on. Okay, there you go. Go ahead. Sorry.
Hello? Are we back? Okay. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. Continue the conversation on Discord. Go to mixedmediapodcast.com where you'll find a link to our Discord. You'll also find a link to all our other podcasting places like Spotify, YouTube, Twitch, etc. So you can find whatever platform you like the best and watch or listen to the podcast there. So, with that, thanks for watching. And if you're watching live, we'll be moving on to our movie segment.
Sweet. Here we go.
Mixed Media Movies.
And welcome back to Mixed Media. This is the movie segment where I will be talking about Avatar today, the new one, Avatar 2, The Way of Water. That's what it's called, Avatar 2, or Avatar, The Way of Water. Okay.
I just noticed it's very confusing when you write, Avatar TWOW, because that just looks like, at first it looks like you just misspell 2.
Oh, I just noticed.
But I guess it's The Way of Water. But
yes.
Unfortunate shortening.
Yes. So as you can tell, I'm here with my co-hosts. So we'll introduce ourselves real quick. So my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella, based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
Hi, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and the media composer living in Los Angeles.
I'm Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and game developer.
Sweet. And Avatar. We're going to be sort of doing a review in the style as I normally do reviews. Maybe a little bit more casually because I didn't take as detailed notes. I saw the film yesterday. Actually, it was literally yesterday. I saw it yesterday in the theater, and it was great to get out to the theater. There's the nearest theater to me is 30 minutes away. A little annoying. That's for sure. And maybe that'll change, but that's a story for another day. So got out to the theater. I saw it in Real D 3D, which is a kind of silly name in my opinion.
Real dimension, 3-dimension. That's what that means.
That's unfortunate. Just call it Real 3D or Real D, one of the two. Just pick one. Saw it like that, particularly because I remember very vividly my experience watching the first film in 3D being the only good 3D experience I've ever had, to this date, frankly. And so wanting to see how that's maybe held up or anything. Oh, 99 Crime says in movie voice, Real 3D or Real D, I guess. Whatever. Yeah. Marketing for these technologies could get a little updated, I think. So that was pretty cool. Saw it in an AMC theater, and to a pretty packed crowd, and that's one of the things we'll be talking about. But first, the AI art below me, that is James Cameron as an Avatar character, and that it's actually pretty cool. I don't know why I decided to paste James Cameron next to him as well with only one earpiece of a headset, but that's okay. That's what it does. But yeah. But two, we got to talk about box office numbers. So if we're just talking about raw numbers on opening weekend, the film made $134 million, and that's an opening weekend. All those more weird Marvel articles, they were like $30 million opening. I'm like, maybe. That's okay, I guess. I mean, that's good. That's very good for, like, you know, if you're an indie film, obviously, like, you know, compared to other people, that's fantastic. But in the grand scheme of, you know, Marvel's success, it's kind of like, okay. This is an opening weekend. $1/10 billion. That's a lot of money. And the overall domestic is $621 million. And the international is where then it just gets absurd. $1.5 billion. So the total worldwide sales is $2.1 billion. Wow. Wow. That's
Has this broken any records, or is this?
I don't know if it's broken like any of those like really particular records, but it has gone up the rankings, and I will talk about that in a moment. But because I was immediately curious, I was like, where does this rank? Because this has got to be pretty impressive. But first, by personal experience, I went to the theater. The parking lot was like way more packed. Lots of beans, yeah. The parking lot was way more packed than I expected to be. The theater was also packed with all kinds of people, family, you know, family units, teenagers, you know, people like us, all kinds of people. It was, you know, honestly, like, really nice to see. The last time I saw that was Top Gun Maverick, I believe. That kind of, like, universal, you know, attendance kind of thing. And this one was probably even more popular in the theater.
I know anecdotally from like my family, some of my family members who went to see it. Like when we went to see Top Gun this summer, there were like 5 people in the theater, including like me and my siblings. So that's like 4. But I think Avatar is, you know, I think that's pretty much average for like the theater in my hometown. But everyone went to see. I haven't seen it, but everyone went to see Avatar: Way of Water. So
yes, and so that was fantastic to see. And the other thing, the reason why I wanted to make sure absolutely to get out to the theater was a lot of people who I, you know, follow completely unrelated to cinema were talking about it, and I was like, what is this buzz around cinema? You know, like, this is crazy. Yeah, that's not Marvel, you know, some nonsense, you know, about like what character makes some appearance in the next film or something silly like that. It's like, you know, like just generic buzz about a film. It was fantastic. So saw it, and I have thoughts. So I'm going to share those thoughts with you. Oh yeah, first I wanted to go through the inflation adjusted rankings of movies. I don't know why Box Office Mojo, which has now been acquired by Amazon, decides to rank films without adjusting for inflation nowadays. It used to be not that. It used to have a lot more features in general. They just kind of just stripped it away when Amazon acquired it. I have no idea why. But now it's less useful. So I had to go to IMDb to get the inflation adjusted list. And so, number 1, this is a great trivia question. It's always the same answer. What's number 1?
Is it Gone with the Wind?
Yeah, it's Gone with the Wind. Yes.
Ooh.
Making an inflation-adjusted almost $4 billion.
That is correct. So I have a question.
That's probably almost entirely United States sales too, right?
Yes, that makes it even more impressive.
So I don't remember if I asked before, but why? Like, because as far as like, it's not like a movie that I hear people like, oh, I gotta watch this movie. You know, like, you know, it might be old, but like, you know, it was a hit back in the day. You know, I never hear people say that. Is there like a reason?
I honestly have never seen it. I can't. I definitely need to. I can't say it's the highest priority, but yeah, go ahead.
Like, when people rank like their favorite movies, I feel like I just never see that. You know, it's like a thing.
Not really. I think it was quite like a phenomena at the time. Like, people were going, like, everyone saw it, and everyone went multiple times to see it, kind of thing.
And what was the What did you say what the value was?
$4 billion.
This is what, lifetime or
Lifetime. So, yeah, gross.
okay, and inflation adjusted.
And inflation adjusted, yes.
And what was Avatar first week?
Say again?
What was Avatar first week?
First week was 140 million, but the total gross is 2.1 billion.
Oh, so they are going. I see.
Exactly. So number 2, do we know what number 2 is?
I don't know. I have a guess, but
Endgame, Avatar 1.
Avatar 1.
I don't know why. Oh, is it?
Yeah, Avatar 1 is the second highest grossing inflation adjusted of all time. 99 Crime says maybe it went viral like Gangnam Style. You see Gone with the Wind references in old movies and cartoons from that era, so the impact is definitely there. Yeah, 100%. 100%.
I see.
Oh, Ben, you're muted, I think. Unless it's on me.
Sorry, yeah. No, when I see that, like, when I ask myself, what is the cultural impact of like the first Avatar though? Like, did it? I mean, people, I guess, went to see it. I haven't seen it, but like, are people referencing it?
Yeah, a lot, I think. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm not really in tune with pop culture anymore, so I don't really know. Actually, I was thinking
I'm not either, but
yeah. I don't know.
Yes. And number 3 from the same director is
Titanic.
Titanic, of course.
That was my guess for number 2, actually. Okay.
Yeah.
I should have known that, actually. Okay. Yeah.
Number 4. Let's just do 4 and 5 just for fun. So 4 is what?
Endgame.
At this point, I'm lost.
Not Endgame. Or Infinity War. No, Endgame. Wait, Endgame is the second one, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But not Endgame.
Star Wars.
Star Wars, the first one. So,
okay.
well, I guess episode 4. And that grossed $3.2 billion inflation adjusted. And then number 5 is... It's been said.
It's been said. Oh, Endgame?
Now it's Endgame, yeah.
Okay, that wasn't my answer, to be clear. That definitely yeah, give me you 99% of the way there.
Yeah, exactly. So we can see our boy James Cameron. He makes movies that get a lot of money. That's why he can do whatever he wants, because he will always attract ridiculous audiences. 99 Crime says last Avatar reference I saw was in Cartoon Network's Mad Parody. I don't even remember that, to be honest. I feel like there's a lot of just colloquial like jokes made about blue people I've heard many times, I don't know. Just like I feel like it is in the everyday like a common, those social common references, I think Avatar is kind of already in that vein. But yeah. I saw it in the theater way back when and it was huge, and the watching that was a memorable experience more than the movie. Was watching it with a literally like no seat left theater like 2 weeks after it came out, and just the people like going with it. Man, I miss that. Anyway, so quite the phenomenon. I've referenced Avatar a lot on this show when I talk about writing, and I talk about structure that never, that is sort of transcendent. So Avatar, the original Avatar, is like basically Pocahontas, basically Romeo and Juliet, which are all the same story, which is the forbidden lover story, right? And they all basically have the same structure, and the core theme has to be the same, which is love transcends some barrier, right? So in Avatar, it's love transcends, well, I guess a lot of things in Avatar, but in Avatar, it's like love transcends, loyalty to, a cause that you've identified with, right? So for the main character in Avatar, he's a Marine, and he is kind of sent off to Pandora to essentially colonize it, right? So there's this like big overtone of like neocolonialism, which I quite enjoy, and yeah, so it's very cool. 99 Crime says, "Me too. That was really fun." I assume the crowd experience. Yes. So yeah, it transcends that barrier. It transcends cultural barriers, right? Because he's got the New York accent, so it's as American as you can possibly get, and we've got this sort of like more like tribal life of the Na'vi, which is the species of people that live on the planet, the blue people, and so yeah, you get that sort of love transcends everything, sort of theme coming out of it, just like you get from other things. So yeah, incidentally, Titanic's is the same story, kind of. It's actually, sorry, I thought about this for a while. I sat down, I was like, is it the same structure? It's not the same structure, but the theme is the same. So it's not the same Pocahontas structure, but the theme is still love transcends these differences. In that case, it's class differences. So yeah, not an unfamiliar theme for James Cameron. Okay. So let's see where to start here. Okay, so the new movie is not that structure at all. And in fact, I wouldn't say it uses any classic structure. It's kind of doing its own thing. Now it's kind of in a very 3-act sort of mode, except it's not. I would say that it's very easy to explain this movie in the traditional 3-act way, although I can break it down in a non-3-act way that also makes it feel quite well put together, right? So I wouldn't call it a 3-act movie. There are probably something like 5 acts in the film. That actually might be exactly it. There might be something like 5 acts in the film in the way that I break it down, and definitely go check out prior episodes if you want to understand that way of looking at act structure. You can look up Screenwriting 101. But you could definitely explain to an executive very easily this film in a sort of 3-act structure, which helps. I should say, while I do really like the original Avatar, it's not like, I think I end up praising it a lot just because so many people hate on it for no reason to me. But just because it is like the same story. It's like that classic story structure, and a lot of people want to be cool and be like, man, that's the same story as Pocahontas, and they're like, oh, it's like, okay, but everything everywhere all at once is the same story as Star Wars, so like, okay, whatever. You can make these comparisons forever, I guess, but like, they don't mean anything in the ultimate critique of the thing. And so I should say my original score for my Letterboxd score for Avatar was a 3.5. I might have actually revised it up to a 4 after watching it again. I'm not sure. And my score for this film was also a 3.5. So I like them roughly the same. And it's not like a mind-blowing thing watching them, but it's extremely enjoyable. I would describe for me like a 3.5 is something like an average good movie. So yeah, very good film. Nothing that's gonna like rearrange your mind necessarily, but very good films. So yeah, okay. So the new Avatar has a lot going for it. One of which is that it was written 10 years ago, and I don't think I ever had almost like a culture shock almost in a weird way. Like being transported 10 years back in screenwriting. You think it's just 10 years ago. Oh my gosh. This story would not be written today. At all. Not even close.
Did he finish writing it 10 years ago, or was it like continuously developed?
So the original Avatar came out 13 years ago, and I think there's like a bit of a gap where he was going obsessive about like he was just like, I'm going to do Avatar for the rest of my life. I don't know why, but he basically said, I'm going to seal a deal with 20th Century Fox, rest in peace. This is now a Disney movie. Where he got to shoot the next 3 films in the franchise back to back to back. The reason he was doing that was to secure his place, right? To make sure that he could actually do those 3 films the exact way with the exact actors, with the so it doesn't run away from him, because that can happen with such a long series directed by one person. So he committed to that project, and so was filming these films for like 10 years straight, basically.
So, what do you mean, like, how did this actually take that long? What is going on for 10 years? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, production's long, itself.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we haven't seen. I don't know if we've seen like this long, in general.
Yeah, but it's production for like what, 3 films?
Yeah, it's for 3 films.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait, he made all 3 of them
at once.
Yeah, they're just not all released at once.
Oh,
Yeah.
see, I did not know that. I thought
I
this
assume
was 10 years for one
post-production
movie.
is happening for the other
confused.
ones. Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah. He definitely wanted to make sure his actors didn't get too old and all the things. Like, he really wanted to make sure he was going to tell the story of Pandora the way he exactly wanted to tell it. And there's a lot of passion in this film. Like, it's very obvious he's very passionate about this universe. It's got a lot of water in it. And if you know anything about James Cameron, he is obsessed with water. Oh my, this guy, I can't even describe to you. I was like, oh, I get it. Someone told you could do Avatar with water, and then you went nuts. They're like, what if, bro? Just let me get an idea. Why did you make the you could have made the Na'vi literally anything, but you decided to make them forest people. Why didn't you just make them sea people? And he was like, I can be on the ocean forever, man. So that's basically how we probably got these films, because by the end of this film, it's very obvious we're going to stay on the sea for at least for the next film, probably forever is my guess. So yeah, this one's called The Way of Water, and there's a lot of water. And the opening premise of this film, it's very fast into it. One of the criticisms I would say is probably a little bit too fast into it, because I think it's not concerned with the fact that it's been 10 years since the last one, but I think there could have been a lot more time spent on spectacle and relearning and reloving the characters from the first one at the beginning, but minor critique. But we jump right into the sort of conflict, which is the return of the, neo-colonial empire, right? The original one has a lot of references to a lot of current day things, and I feel like these films do a layer of messaging that actually is functional and not propaganda. Like, even if you disagreed with them, it wouldn't be annoying. You know what I mean? Like, you could understand the simple appeal to the simple virtues that are happening there. Like, for example, there's this obvious theme of environmentalism in all these films, right? So, but the virtue being appealed to is actually rather simple. It's not advocating for you must agree with policy A, Y, Z, or else you're a this, that, or other thing, right? It's basically just saying, we are supposed to care for, living things, this general idea, right? And that's it. I mean, I'm reminding you, right? I'm reminding you of this true and good thing, that nature is important, right? It's not so much like beating you over the head with all the ways that you suck and calling you names if you don't like it. So, that's very different. So yeah, anyway. So this film, we open up, we go right back into the action, as the Empire comes back to lay waste on Pandora again, destroy the forest people with an all-new army that is upgraded with a Avatar unit, right? So the Avatar are humans, basically, that take on a Na'vi body through some technology, basically.
I gotta say that the choice of naming it Avatar is very strange, considering there's already a massive IP already called Avatar.
Yeah, I agree. It's a little weird. But, I mean, the word makes sense in both cases, so...
Right, like, I was like, yeah, I understand like why you would call it that, but it's like, I feel like I always feel like, all right, can we figure out something else out? Unless it was like, unless I was like, this is just too perfect,
Yeah, whenever you say Avatar, you have to say the blue people one,
Yeah, it's like the bending one or the blue people one.
See, that's like the only cultural reference that I know of with this film, with this franchise.
Yeah.
That's that. Yes, that. But I don't know. I don't see people talking about it. Like, anyway, it's beside the point.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. So yeah, we have that conflict at the front of them coming back. We have an interesting way of reincarnating the villain from the last one, who spoiler dies at the end. Honestly, it's not the kind of movie that that really matters. But that happens. I mean, it's the kind of movie where you know exactly what's going to happen basically from the start of the movie, and that's not why you're watching it.
Is it as good as Somehow Palpatine Returned?
It is kind of like objectively kind of ridiculous, kind of like that.
Okay.
But in a way that's like...
But not presented in the same way? Like,
No.
Okay.
It's kind of almost... it doesn't take itself too seriously and doesn't make a big deal out of it, basically. Like is done in Star Wars, like this big reveal,
Well, that the Rise of Skywalker needed something. They didn't have a villain.
Yeah.
So they needed to say, well, we have a villain again,
Yeah. So in this time we get him coming back via his memories and whatever being kept in basically a USB that was put into a new body that was being grown on Earth because his way of being a I don't know what he is supposed to be, like an admiral. I don't really know what his rank is supposed to be, but I guess he's just that good. Like you have to you have to save his. But I will say though, the acting of that actor whose name escapes me right now in the first film is so good. Like it's like one of the most entertaining villains put on screen for a blockbuster. I think very, very awesome. And so they bring forcing him back into the picture. I mean, kind of makes sense because they didn't, James Cameron didn't originally envision the first one as being part of a series. So, I'm sure he wouldn't have killed him in the first one if he knew that he was going to make a second one. And he's just too good. He's just too entertaining as a villain. Just kind of a brute, but in a fun and fresh way. Okay, so I won't go through the story beat by beat. I just wanted to give us a layout of where we are. So he comes back, and he's looking specifically for our main character to kill him. So that, because he knows that the main character has the right stuff to, I guess, prevent the Empire's full return to harvesting, the goods of Pandora now that Earth is a barren wasteland. Who's better, this villain or Gangs of New York villain? My Crime says in the chat. Gangs of New York. Have I seen that? I don't think so. Don't kill me, I'm sorry. Let me look this up real quick. Oh. Yeah, I was like, that sounds so familiar. I think it's because I've seen the title card so many times on Netflix or something like that. And I just never have watched it. So I don't know. Sorry. But okay. Really fun movie. Yeah, I'll check it out for sure. Thanks for the recommendation. It's got Leo in it or someone? Whatever. Anyway. So he's hunting specifically our main character from the last movie to kill him because he'll prevent the full return of the Empire. And so
it's actually called the Empire?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it's called it. I don't even know if it has a name, actually, now that you mention it. It is the United States. It's the United States military. It's, in future form.
Right.
But I don't know if that's the official thing or not. But what was I saying? So, oh yeah, so our main character, understands that this is going to be the path that he's only going to bring destruction to the forest tribes of Navi. And so what he does is he preemptively flees where? To the sea tribes. Convenient for Mr. James Cameron. And the sea people are completely different. Like, well, not completely different in like that they're different species, but it's kind of like a different race, right, of people. They've got more sea adapted features, if that makes sense. Just slightly, like here and there. And I really actually like the character design, the thoughtfulness put into both the original blue people and these teal people. I do enjoy the character design, especially because they're pretty much naked the whole time, but with just like loincloths and like other jingle jangles all over the place. But the way the character designs are, it's like it like takes away any weirdness, or at least you get used to it, and it doesn't become like, oh, there's a butt on the screen. You know what I mean? Like it's the way the characters are designed is actually rather respectful to that. So that's cool. Can get a little scary. We're like, oh, what's going on? But yeah, so that's good. Okay, so getting more into the writing. So we pivot way harder in a different direction than I would have ever expected. Our main character becomes more of the main. So in the first Blue film, you remember it's a love story. So we've got Zoe Saldana's character. I forget all their names. I'm sorry. I'm really bad with names of people in movies, period. You know this if you've been watching the show. But Zoe Saldana's character falls in love with our main character, and they're kind of the co-leads of the first film. The second film really leans hard, actually, into our main character. Almost entirely. Like, Zoe Saldana's character kind of, goes to the back a little bit, which I know probably will upset some people because her performance is spot on in the first one, and this one it's even better, I would say, in the moments where she's given to shine. But clearly the story that he wants to tell is in such a way that it really couldn't be a duo anymore. And why is that? It's because we're returning to this family after they've had kids. And they have lots of them. So they have 3 biological kids and essentially 2 adopted sort of kids. One of them's a human, and the other one's a sort of like a foster. I won't explain it. Just watch the movie. But and this dynamic is very interesting because we're seeing a lot of the flaws that come with valor for the main character. So the first movie, he becomes essentially the chief of the tribe, but he's an outsider, right? Like, so there's that sort of tension going on. And then now he leaves, demotes himself, but still retains that sort of status, right? He still thinks of himself as the chief, and the way that they portray that he's a Marine, right? Like, he's an ex-Marine, so we get a lot of that sort of way of parenting his children, right? So he's very concerned about keeping his children in line, not necessarily the best at making sure that he's also providing the flip side of that as well. I know Kern says Dune. What about Dune? Let me know. So yeah, and the whole basically movie ends up being about fatherhood as its central, sort of theme. Extremely masculine movie. like honestly, I don't remember the last time I saw a movie that was about masculinity. Like, literally, I actually don't remember. Maybe. No, I actually don't remember, to be honest.
Is The Power of the Dog about masculinity?
Oh man, I don't want to talk about that film. It was such a terrible movie. I wish I watched Minari instead of that film. That's what I was thinking the whole time watching Minari. I was like, this film is so much better. But anyway, 99 Crime says, similar to Dune, going to a new planet and gaining power in a new society. Yeah, except he's kind of an outsider in the new society in the sense that he never really gains power like that, right? And that's kind of something he has to grapple with because he can't control the circumstances around him, right? So there's this, there's this theme of masculinity, which is, this idea of being the protector of your family while balancing all these sort of like wider principled goals, so like, he's trying to balance how he's protecting his family, his children, with these ideas of, I guess, bravery in general, right? So, like, now that he has a higher calling, which is to be a father, how does that now balance his life with also being a leader capable of taking down, something such as, the U.S. military, right? And that's sort of the central tension that's playing, and it's punishing, actually, I would say. And I'm not going to go too much into the story, but it's a very punishing look at it's a very like traditional sort of like he's going to bear this cross, essentially this burden of like having too much to carry, right? And not being able to just simply wish it away, will it away, punch it away, control his environment away. He's got to use the other sort of masculine characteristics, the good masculine characteristics, to try to figure out what is actually right for his family, right? And that was really refreshing. Like I really don't remember the last time we got a film like that, and it's really great to see family being the center of a movie. I honestly don't remember the last blockbuster I've seen where like a family dynamic that is more honest and humble is on screen instead of something completely destructive to the point where it's just kind of about the I guess falling apart of a family instead of family itself, versus this, which is much more I guess in the line of just like a family movie. Like, I don't know how else to put it, like you bring your family to this movie. Yeah, there's a few curse words here and there, but it's the kind of thing where it's like, we can all relate to this dynamic, right? Between siblings, then between parents and children, then between the family and outsiders of that family, and then also being that family with its own culture, going microculture, family's own microculture interacting with foreign places. Like we've all experienced these things, and the dynamic is a lot more realistic than not. And that was pretty cool. And so, yeah, I really like that. And then we continue the masculinity sort of theme into the sub-themes of the film, which are about the children, the male children sort of growing up, right? So they have to grow into this shadow of their father, right? Their father's like, kind of a demigod, right? And they have to be in the shadow of that, right? So one of them is like roughly maybe 17, 18 or something like that. The other one's like, 15 or something like that. And there's this older brother, younger brother sort of dynamic. And then there's this wider sort of, how do I make my place? And how do I learn to balance being ambitious, being brave, with also being principled, right? So, again, kind of a very, masculine theme. But, yeah, so it was all of those things. Pretty cool. Then we got other sub-themes about the dangers of immortality, which is a very traditional like hero-villain type theme, Like, I mean, if you just think of comics, you know, a lot of villains just want to live forever, right? What I really found really awesome about this film, I would just love to talk to James Cameron about some of these things because, you know, it'd just be interesting. But, you know, a lot of the premise of the film, what a lot of people ultimately want from the sea people is a serum that comes from these like whale type things that are like basically literally whales, except alienized slightly. And clearly James Cameron really likes whales a lot, like a lot.
And they are water mammals. They're the only ones, or not the only ones, but one of the only ones.
These whales are like super like big brain, like they actually compose music, and it's interesting, that's for sure. um, but he really likes whales, clearly, in this film. So, you know, there's this interesting thing where these whales have this sort of serum that allows humans to basically live forever as long as they consume it. And of course, such a thing would be extraordinarily expensive and so very profitable. And that's sort of like one of the imperialistic drivers, right, of this regime, right? So yeah, we have that sort of overtone of like a society wanting immortality. Honestly, not terribly, you know. I mean, we could use some of these messages now, honestly, and that would be quite helpful to us now, I think. Although I don't think, you know, 10 years ago he was thinking about a lot of those things. But you know, the lengths that people would go to support themselves in that is very interesting, and I think that'll be the overarching theme of the whole series, is the impression that I got. So we'll probably leave the masculinity theme in the next film, because it kind of gets a nice resolution at the end of this film. And then we'll probably continue on with these themes of like what a society would do for immortality, and these, you know, other themes he's probably going to bring back. Okay. So that's the writing. Writing is pretty good. It's, I would say, the only critique I have is that it has midpoint sag, to me at least. I know Steph watched it with me and didn't think so at all, actually. I think there's way too much, in my opinion, in just indulging in like loving the whales, honestly. Like, there are just like literally like 20 minutes of like just whales swimming and the characters enjoying them. And like, honestly, it was really fun for way longer than I probably would have said that probably would be fun for. But he really, really extends this this section of the movie. And this is a very long movie, so it's not like you can't justify cutting part of the movie to make it a little bit tighter. But it's not really a structural problem, as you see. It's actually just like an editing thing. Like, they just decided to extend a large part of the middle, and kind of gave it a midpoint sag that it, to me, didn't have to have. So yeah, that'd be my critique from the writing side. Acting, phenomenal, as usual. It's insane seeing the technology being used. It holds up pretty well, I would say, to when it debuted way back when. If you don't know, it's mocap, basically, but it's got like facial mocap too. So like, there's like all the face muscles and everything are all being tracked very, very precisely. So the resulting animation, whatever you want to call it, the resulting modeling is super detailed, and what you're seeing is the actual acting from the actors. What I can never understand, though, is that the blue people are gigantic. If someone knows the answer to this question, like, please tell me. Like, a blue person, the Na'vi, are like twice the height of a human, right? I don't understand how they have, in the scenes that they have both humans and Na'vi, and they interact with each other. How is that happening on a technical level? Because, like, in the studio, they're the same size. Like, it just blows my mind.
I was about to say, you can probably watch some video, like, footage of how they do it, but I guess there's no, like, tricks in, like, in the studio. They literally just, like, the person just doing whatever. I don't really know.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of behind the scenes from the first one, and I I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. It might just be like some animation that's like done, like, like some tweaking of like the motions to like scale it properly. That's done by some 3D animator. I don't really know. But it's really impressive. The way they interact with their environment is super impressive as well, because if you watch the behind the scenes of how this is done, they'll put like scenery amongst the bluescape, basically. So like you'll have like random bushes here and there that are like actually just like, the set designer actually put them there, but the rest is like blue. And so when they're interacting with their environment, it's very seamless in the sense that you don't get the feeling that nothing's tangible or that they're animating things on top of people pretending to touch things, right? Which honestly in a lot of films is extremely obvious. In this film, it's so well blended, right? The real and the unreal, that it really brings you into the world in a way that's extremely unique to this series. And one of the reasons I think that people love this series so much is that it's like a fantastical world that's actually immersive in a more full sense than most like full fantasy movies are. Just because of the filming technique, and I think that's to be celebrated for sure. So acting fantastic, cinematography kind of related. Cinematography is kind of typical James Cameron type cinematography, which is kind of very blockbustery style. It's very expositional, not too much like storytelling, except for accentuation. I wish I had vocabulary for these things, but honestly, like, I kind of get jealous sometimes of like Ben talking about classical music because there's so much nice vocabulary to describe things. In film, there just isn't. Like, like you just kind of resort to like recompiling words over and over again to describe the same phenomenon, and I hate that. But anyway, like there's like the style of camera work is more expositional. It's more to accentuate the beats and the moments and the feelings, right? It's not so much to create its own language. I'm a super fan of cinematography that adds language to a movie, and maybe that's a personal thing. I don't dock it for it. It's just not as additive as I think camera work can be. But it does the job. It does the job really well. A lot of the action pieces are fantastic. The stunt work is fantastic. A lot of movies these days, action movies, really suck in their choreography. But the choreography in this film is fantastic. And I have a feeling that has to also do with the fact that we've got a blended reality as well, right? So, you can do the motions, the stunt work literally, but the impacts can be augmented, if that makes sense. So that's a cool advantage that this film has. So action sequences are great. And the score, I was really disappointed by the score. I'm not gonna lie. I actually remember parts of the score of the original, and I haven't like gone to go listen to it like in maybe 10 years, right? So I don't know if there's a different person who does this film.
Yeah. James Horner died in like 2013.
Oh, it was James Horner originally. Okay, gotcha.
He's kind of James Cameron's guy, right, for Titanic and.
Yeah, well, it kind of shows. I'm not gonna lie. No offense to the new guy, whoever it is, but like you're not as good.
I think the guy was like James Horner's like assistant or something.
Oh, well,
he's Simon Franklin.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, really forgettable score, and I tried to listen into it like multiple times to like soak it in, and it's just like it's really generic. There's a moment where we recalled a theme from the original, and my brain went immediately like, "Oh, that's what I loved about the music," but it was only one moment, and then just kind of generic to me at least. So yeah, that was okay. And yeah, I would say overall, like an audience pleaser, something that is actually universal, something that has a lot to say without yelling at you, a lot to say that probably some people, probably many people disagree with. I'm sure I could disagree with something if I thought about it. But higher principles being appealed to instead of these low-level, cheap, whatever garbage, score points with like whatever group of people to take advantage and to take their money. Disney. None of that. We get like actual proper messaging through filmmaking, and I find that so we get moralizing, right? We get a lot of that in this film, which means that it feels like we are telling a story that's bigger than the story itself, and that is some of the magic of cinema. That it really is. Some of the magic of cinema is that at the end of a lot of most movies, right, you feel like you've explored more than just the specific story you just watched. And that's actually present here, which I miss very dearly, very, very dearly from a lot of movies these days that are just so concerned with like taking cheap shots and being just deconstructive of and asking no interesting questions while doing so. So that was really refreshing. Still a 3.5, not blowing my mind or anything like that. I really enjoyed it though. I really enjoyed watching it. Would totally recommend supporting it. Although it's Disney now. Can I really say that? I don't know. But I actually got emotional when I saw the 20th Century Fox logo come up in front. I was like, oh gosh, this sucks. This is no longer just 20th Century Fox anymore. But sadness aside, I would recommend it. Support James Cameron in making timeless movies and making a lot of money off of them, which makes complete sense when you make timeless movies. And by the way, last note here, it has not so much to do with the movie as to do with the wider industry. See, the movie theater makes you way more money. Way more money. It makes you magnitudes more. I've talked about this a lot on the podcast. Streaming services do not make these companies more money. It makes them magnitudes less money. Just think about it logically. How many movies can you watch per month for $10? It's obscene. Actually, they're writing checks for these movies that are way beyond what they'll gross in streaming sales. It makes no sense at all. It's a race to the bottom. It will destroy the whole industry as a whole. It'll destroy the art form because they don't care about the art form. It's not about that. It's about getting as many numbers possible onto the platform. That's all it's ever been about. They will go into debt over it, over this war for streaming. They will go billions of dollars into debt for this war in streaming. It doesn't matter to them. They are monopolies. They have all the money in the world. The movie theater, as James Cameron just showed you, and this is not even a popular season for movies. People aren't thinking about movies the way they were before. Makes you billions of dollars. The return on the investment of this thing is ridiculous. It's absurd. Just from box office. So, please, do not accept this lie. It's an utter lie that streaming services make these companies more money. It literally does not. That's the last thing I had to say. Okay. Yeah, any thoughts from y'all?
I really want to see it now. But the issue is, I actually have the chance. Actually, I don't know if I ever said this on the podcast, but I did go to the movie theater over winter break. As Avatar was playing, of course, but the issue was I didn't see the first one. So I was like, I don't really, it doesn't really seem to make sense to me.
Probably good maybe I'll watch the first one.
Yeah, maybe I'll, I don't know, buy the first one or whatever. I wonder if, like, since it's such like a liked movie, if it's like, I wonder if the price has gone down as would be normal with a movie of its age, or if it's like higher up there. You know what I'm saying?
Wait, say again.
I'm just curious, like, whether the price of the movie, like if I buy like a Blu-ray or DVD or whatever, right, of the movie, the first one I'm talking about, if like the price has gone down as would be expected with the average movie over time, or if it stayed higher up because it's such a well-liked movie,
Yeah, for sure.
Does the first one have like a name? Like, is it just Avatar, or is it like
just Avatar? Yeah.
Okay, because looking it up, it really is just not nice.
Yeah.
Avatar DVD is definitely gonna give me like The Last Airbender, probably. Oh no, actually, it does give me. Oh, it gives me the one I want. Cool.
I actually have two more things to say. I forgot. They're actually important. So one of them is about the 3D. Real quick, the 3D was pretty good, but doesn't actually hold up as much as I remember. You could probably see it in 2D and be just fine. Although I will say that for the first time when watching 3D, I thought actually that you could do this really well. There's just a few moments where like the image breaks apart because we have something jutting, too close out on stage, right? And it looks like sometimes when the object is too far out on the stage, right, of the 3D stage, the image starts to break apart, and that was very annoying to me. I hated that. If they kept the image, if they didn't go so far out on stage, which is what I remember from the first one, so I don't know, maybe they had a different 3D artist this time, or a different paradigm with how they were shooting it this time, or whatever. But I remember the first one actually having not too many moments where things were coming too far on stage, and it feels like what's happening is you're just being given depth data, right? Like your brain is just receiving depth information. It just makes the picture feel a little bit more immersive when you have things that are just have a little bit of that information baked into there. It kind of gives your brain a like, oh, this is familiar. I'm not looking at a picture, right? Sort of feeling, which can be kind of interesting. So I would love to see people explore 3D more, even though it's a really old technology, and just do it right. I think Avatar's on the more right side of things in most 3D movies, which I never watch because it's invariably bad when I try. And the last thing I will say, what was the last thing? It was 3D and something else. Dang it. Forgot. Forgot again. Man. Oh, yes. I remember now. He straight up looks to recreate, like, Titanic moments in this movie. Like he just can't help himself. He's just like, the idea of a ship sinking. Like, what if we did it this way instead? And so we get a whole ship sinking sequence at the end of this movie. I'm like, dude, it's been like 30 years since Titanic? Like, calm down. Or maybe more. Has it been like 50 years since Titanic? I don't remember. But like, you still have regrets about how you shot that? Is that what it is? Like, you think you can get even cooler sequences? Like, what if they climbed the tables in this way? And, like, what if the ship capsizes halfway through? I mean, it was cool. But, like, it's just really funny because it's like you can clearly see his sea-related obsessions coming out in this film quite a lot. Very indulgent in those things. He has the deepest dive record. He is the person with the deepest dive record out of any human.
Huh?
Yeah.
I thought you meant like as in like he had like deepest dive record as in like the person in the movie who went like the lowest ever. You actually mean he himself?
No. I assisted.
So he really is
right?
like a sea lover.
Oh no, yeah. He has like 3 documentaries about the ocean. One of them is about his deepest dive, where he took like a very tiny craft to like the Mariana Trench, not the deepest part of the Mariana Trench, because that would be obscene. But like one of the higher shelves of the Mariana Trench, and he sees some. I think I watched that documentary. Some weird animals down in the sea. It's like an alien world of its own, which is probably maybe part of the
inspiration
for this film. Yeah. So
I wonder if I'm gonna say something. Oh yeah, I guess that's what he uses Avatar money for. He's like, oh, I can go to the ocean now.
Exactly. Stephanie Costello says Titanic 1997. Okay, yeah. So like they're a little. Oh, it's actually a little more recent than I thought. So like 20-something years ago. So yeah, well, apparently he had regrets from 20-something years ago. He wanted to have more chances at the ship sinking thing. And I'm not mad at him. It was great. It's pretty good. I just thought it was funny.
Where do you go to buy DVDs nowadays?
Blu-rays?
Or Blu-rays. Yeah, I guess that's the new technology. It's
Oh,
not
really
new. It's
that
like
new?
old, but
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I just don't. I just don't buy. I've never, I guess, really bought Blu-rays
The
or
new thing
DVDs.
is
So it's
actually
like,
10K discs. Is like the new technology.
people have 10K screens.
No.
Okay.
I just buy
Interesting.
Blu-rays. I think it's kind of a funny thing. But well, I mean, I have a 4K projector, and most Blu-rays are not 4K. So if you do 10K, you can actually watch it 4K, which is kind of nice. But
What does Blu-ray tend to be?
it tends to be 2.1K,
Okay, that's fine with me.
which is like actually the
Uh,
native format of most movies anyway. So
okay.
normal.
It's like, where do people generally go to buy them nowadays?
So I buy most of my Blu-rays where I can find them cheap. But if you can get somewhere physically, I would highly recommend going to Best Buy, because Best
That's where I
Buy.
found it.
Okay, yeah, Best Buy randomly has like really great movies on sale, and they just kind of rotate them.
It is $9
Oh
to
yeah,
get
so
Blu-ray and DVD to get both discs. It is $9 at the moment.
there you go. Best Buy is
It's
pretty
normally
good.
20. I don't know why. It's a very strange idea. Wouldn't you think they would not make it on sale when the hype period's happening? Because
Yeah,
they can
that's
just
true.
capitalize off the hype period. It's
Okay,
very
but everyone
strange,
has
but
the disc of Avatar probably already, like
I
practically
mean, I
speaking.
don't. So
Yeah.
uh,
um.
I will be certainly buying it for $9. I'll say that.
Sweet. Yeah.
Yeah,
Either
I
Best
was
Buy or you can also find good deals sometimes on Barnes and Noble.
Barnes and Noble. Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know they were a big
Uh,
like DVD or Blu-ray seller.
yeah, they are. They have like sales sometimes on like whole production companies. So sometimes there'll be like a uh, whatever. You know what I mean?
It's like what Steam does with publishers sometimes.
Yeah. Um, and the last place I'd go, this is not for deals, but for quality Blu-rays, because not all Blu-rays are made the same, unfortunately. It kind of adds to the confusion of the Blu-ray market, and that's a whole other topic. But to get quality Blu-rays, highly recommend the Criterion Collection if you can swing the money for the films that are worth it. So I usually do classic films on Criterion Collection, like Last Samurai and stuff like that.
You can buy the Avatar soundtrack on vinyl from Barnes and Nobles. That is so random.
That's cool. It's
Yeah.
good. It's good for the culture.
Mhm. I don't see the movie, so unfortunately. But I see the book. What? There's a book
Oh yeah, there's a book. I forgot that. Yeah.
called "The Science of Avatar." I feel like that's a strange way to go.
No, there's a
But, okay.
fictional book too. Like James Cameron
Oh, like
co-wrote a fictional series.
he's in
He
love with
clearly
his
got
universe.
obsessed. Like, just went nuts for like 13 years.
Wow. Interesting.
Um, cool. All right. Well, that was my bit, and that means that was the show. So I hope you enjoyed my take on things. If you disagree, you thought it was really trash, I don't think that's the general feeling. I think most people really like it, at least. 99 Crimes is lost in the sauce or found. Well, but if you disagree with anything I said about Avatar, definitely hit me up on Discord. The link to that will be in the description, or you can go to mixedmediapodcast.com. Tell me your thoughts about Avatar, or put them down in the comments below too. I mean, I read those, so if you want to get a hot take to us about that, that's the way to do it. Or if you agree and you like the analysis, please hit the thumbs up button. Tell me what you did like about the film, or where you did agree. I'm interested to see that as well. With that, again, shout out to two awesome people who are supporting us on Locals. That's mixedmedia.locals.com. That's 99 Crime, who's in the chat right now. Shout out to you. Thank you, my dude. And that's Rob Sharma, and they're supporting us for $5 a month. Like, you know, one thing I realized recently, and I'm really grateful. Well, now that you're here, I've got to be sappy. I'm really grateful to you, both of y'all, because there are some big content creators who are actually people know who they are. They're on streams all the time with tens of thousands of people watching, who have 3 Locals subscribers. And we've got 2. that makes me super happy, and I appreciate
We're basically
that.
world famous. We're up there
Well,
with
that's not what I'm saying.
I mean, we have a similar metric, though, is what I'm saying.
I'm just saying I'm appreciative of the generosity, because that $10 a month actually like makes us net neutral right now on our electronic expenses, like hosting the podcast and stuff like that. So I appreciate that. With that, I've got nothing else to say. We'll see you next Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, thanks for listening and watching.
Yep, thanks for watching.
Look, tell a man no trouble, I don't want beef, man, I just want vibes. Big man like me, no need for the telephone hype. I got too much getting online. One rule, then dead I'm on site. Wrong move, I bet they gon' ride. No need for the telephone hype, nah. No need for the snoozing. Big whip outside, I'm cruising. Big stick inside, no losing. Better watch out for the snake and Judas is. Don't ask them who this is. I bet they know what I'm moving in. I bet I show it into a dim. How you hate and then lose again? How you hating my vibes? Why you wasting my time? Getting hype on my line. Tell a man I don't want feedback, I just want relax. Brand new whip, two-tone, I need that brand new hit. You know, like lean back, brand new bits I live in. We back, man, you never gon' like us. Get them on sight now, let them all like that way. They know it more righteous. Look at my life, I'm living alright, I'm nice, you know.